uh, this story. So,
Okay.
I haven't told this story in so long. So I got into work one night, and we have what was called a QRT team, and that's the quick response team. And every night you come into the shift, everyone gets assigned a number. So you need to have 5 people on the team every night. And usually they pick the biggest, strongest people to be on the team. And this was at the women's prison. So there is at least 1 or 2 women on the team because it's a women's prison. But they pick 5 people to be on the team. And when you come in and start your shift, they let you know if you're on the team. And every person, number 1 through 5, has a specific job if the team needs to be called.
Yeah.
And what they do is they put you in an area where you can leave at a moment's notice if need be. And what the QR team is for is if there is an incident where officers need backup, they call the QRT team over the intercom. The QRT team leaves wherever they are, go to a staging area, get dressed in what I can best describe as riot gear, and then they go to the area to deal with the situation. A lot of times it's things such as cell extractions where they need an inmate to leave one cell and go to another, but they refuse. They'll send the QRT team in there to remove them and take them to where they need them to go. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, inmates would see the QRT team, they would see the crew in this massive gear, and they would just give up because they don't want to deal with what comes next. All right, you know what? Fine. You call the team. I give up.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. So I get to work one night, and they let me know that I'm on the QRT team. And I was like, okay, fine. That's fine. And QRT team is actually redundant, but whatever. That's what we called it. And they let me know I'm on the quick response team. And I was like, all right, that's cool. And this was when I was working overnights. So I get there at about 11:30-ish or 11:45 because I was always late. And I do my initial count. And I was working in an area where I didn't have to actually watch over any inmates. I was patrolling at a certain corridor, which means that from about midnight until 4:30 in the morning, I didn't really have anything to do. I just kept an eye on this corridor, and that was it. So I'd taken a book with me to work that night, and I was like, all right, this is going to be a really easy night. I have a book. I'm going to sit here where I can observe, and I'm going to read my book and eat my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Right? So,
peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are great.
Yeah, so I do my area checks when I first got there. I got my spot set up. I got my PB&J. I got my water bottle. I'm sitting there with my book, and I crack it open, and as soon as I sit down, I get a call over the intercom. QRT, assemble in central control. And I was like, oh, son of a gun. Mm-hmm. You've got to be kidding me. So I get up, and I run to the area where I need to go. And the commander on duty that day told us that we had an incident in one of the cells, and it was an inmate, and she was a recurring inmate, which is a story all in itself because she did not need to be in prison. She needed help that she was not getting, and she would come to prison on $10 bail and couldn't pay bail because it was just her. She had nobody to pay her bail, so she would just sit in prison for months. It was awful. But she would also, when she was in prison, she would get medication that would kind of calm her down. And when she would get released, she wouldn't have access to her psych meds because she was just on her own. She was homeless. So whenever she would get arrested and come back, she was just insane. She was small, she was harmless, but she was just insane. I can't even. I'm gonna explain to you how insane she was. So we get this call, and our captain at the time says this in the most matter-of-fact manner. He's like, "Hey, it's such and such, blah blah blah." She's standing on her. The officer on the unit's telling us she's stripped off all of her clothes. She's standing on her bed. She's covered herself in her own fecal matter, and she's yelling, "Come get me, come get me." So we're going to have to go get her. So they come out of the back, and they bring out these hazmat suits, these giant cloth jumpers. And so we put on the suits. We put our gear on over top of it. And all of us are kind of looking at each other like, are you kidding me? Really? So we do it, and that's our job. And And how can I tell this story quickly without giving away all of the details, which I probably shouldn't share? So before we go in there to, so we're in our gear, we're lined up outside of our cell door, and we're going to go and do what we have to do. But before we do, at some point, one of the officers had sprayed the pepper spray that we use. And I don't know if if anyone has ever been sprayed with that stuff, but like it's pretty intense. It's like pepper spray times 10. It makes your it causes your eyes to swell up. It gets into your throat. It swells up your throat a little bit. It makes you cough. It burns. It hurts. Everything hurts. Your nose starts to run. You can't cough. It's awful. Normally officers are hesitant to use that because it affects us too.
Yeah,
so
I can see how.
So we get on the unit and we have to deal with that. And long story short, we actually had to go in there and she was just like screaming. She was like banging on her door, and at that point she was a threat to herself more than she was a threat to others. We need to get her out of there and get her, we need to get her out of there and get her to the infirmary so she could be taken care of. So we all put on rubber gloves, and we have our rubber gloves on, our hazmat suits, our riot gear, and we're all lined up. And it's a whole thing. Like we line up in a line, and we go in there as one solid unit to go and secure the inmate. And we're all on a line, and I'm the last person in line because I'm the smallest. At the time, you gotta understand, I wasn't eating very well, and I wasn't taking care of myself. I was about 50 pounds lighter than I am right now. So we all line up, and we all same height, just about 50 pounds lighter. We all line up, and I'm at the back of the line. And right before we went in there, I looked down at my hand, and I noticed that my rubber glove has the thumb hole. My thumb had poked through the hole in the glove. So I have an exposed thumb tip. Just as I was about to speak up and tell my commander this, he gives the order for us to go in there and get her, and he yells, "Fire, fire, fire!" So that's us to go in there and go. And the rest of my team starts going. So I'm like, well, I guess I got to go too.
Yeah.
So I go in there with my exposed poop thumb, and we all go in there, and we all there was 5 officers in there, and we're all responsible for a limb, right? Like, one person secures the left arm, one person secures the right arm, and then left leg, right leg, and then the torso. And I was responsible for the leg. And I go in there, and I remember grabbing her leg, and my hand just slides down her leg, just coated in I don't know, just coated in poop. And the whole time I'm coughing and gagging on this spray that was in there, and I'm just coughing, and I'm wearing this face shield, and I'm coughing into my shield, and I'm securing this bit. It was just it was just the most disgusting thing. And we managed to get her out of there, and then 2 of the female officers take her into the shower area, and we get her in the shower, and we have her clean herself off, and then take her out of the shower, take her to the infirmary, and have medical staff check her out. And we had an inmate worker clean up the mess that she had left behind in her cell and in the shower. And then that happened, and the medical staff, looked at her, determined that she was okay, put her back in a different cell where she could be observed. And then about an hour later, before I could even write the report, she starts acting up again. We had to go in and get her again. And, and then the night ended, and we had to write a bunch of reports, and et cetera, et cetera. And that was the night. And if you had come to me and asked me how my work was or what I did at work, I honestly would not have even thought to tell you that. Because that was just another night at work. It was so unnoteworthy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That seems completely unnoteworthy.
There was another incident of someone was, and I'll leave you with this. Someone was in their cell, and they were biting pieces of their skin and spitting it at us. And that was just oh, well, all right, that's what we're doing tonight. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And again, like, I felt nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. I felt nothing. And it's just like, I should feel something about this. I should feel something for sure. But what I kind of found was that, like, that what had happened was I kind of turned off that valve of feeling. I turned it off out of necessity because that was the only way that I could do the job and survive in that environment. What I found out was it's not something you can just turn back on when you leave. You can't turn that on and off. So either I can't speak for everyone who does the job, but I'm someone who I feel a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
And I had turned that off, and I was like, I don't want this to be off anymore, but I can't turn it back on because I have to be able to do my job.
You have to survive your job.
I have to survive my job. And, the thing is, I said earlier that all the things that make me a good person make me a bad officer. If I have all those feelings, not only does it make it hard for me to do my job, but it opens me up to manipulation, right? It opens me up to anyone can have a sob story of, oh, I need this, and now I'm getting manipulated, and now I'm getting fired. So I have to turn that off because I have to be very, like, for lack of a better word, pragmatic. Like, really just, this is my job. There's no feelings involved. I don't hate you. I don't like you. I nothing you. I don't even know you. This is just me doing my job. But I kind of found that, like, I couldn't turn that back on when I left. And I didn't like that feeling at all. So yeah, there's that. Uplifting story. Uplifting stories.
Yeah.